it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I'm here to share with you the Finally Fall book tag, which for some reason I have never gotten around doing, despite being on BookTube for as long as this tag has existed pretty much. The original tag creator does not have the video up anymore, so I will link to Angela's video from Literature Science Alliance, which inspired me to do this tag. So without further ado, let's get into some autumn vibes and do this book tag. In fall, the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. For this, I am going to have a few options. Some of them are manga and one of them is an actual book. So first off, I have Siren Queen by Nivo. I recently read this. This is all about old Hollywood glamour and what if Hollywood starlets and stars made kind of Faustian deals of the devil with studio executives to gain immortality. I found that this had a very interesting and easily imaginable setting. Like I was constantly able to picture what was happening. And it was very atmospheric. I really loved that. And also very creepy, which is perfect for this time of year. And then, obviously, I have Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama. This is one of my favorite ongoing manga series, all about witches and training witches in these little, apprenticeships. And it has a very interesting world that is deeply imaginative. And it talks about things like differences and disability and how those things would look like in a witch society. So I really enjoy this series and it has fantastic art as well. And basically, I just have a list of things I want to cosplay eventually. And there's 20 things just from this series alone. And then I have Delicious in Dungeon by Ryoko Kui. This is another manga series that I'm really hyped for. It has really epic world building and just fantastic characterization and monster designs. Just the monsters alone are enough to make this a standout world for me. It is such an imaginative series. Nature is beautiful, but also dying. Name a book that is beautifully written, but also deals with a heavy topic like loss or grief. Once again, I have two answers for this question. First is A Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk. This is, I think, a very hopeful fantasy of manners, sort of Regency-inspired narrative, but it also deals with systemic misogyny and sexism, and especially forced marriages and also forced curtailing of women's rights and powers, because there are people who are born with sorceress powers, but women get colored into this magical color that prevents them from using magic when they are getting married, because there is a chance that when they get pregnant, their child will get possessed by a spirit. And for this reason, there is this practice of coloring women. And this story is basically all about these women trying to go against that and find other solutions and basically rebel against the existing patriarchal system. And it is at times very hard to read because of that, because there are some really harrowing scenes depicting that how violent this practice is and how it diminishes women and how it diminishes women's agency. So I really love this book, but it can be a very harrowing and tough book to read. And the other book that I want to talk about is Bolero by Wyatt Kennedy, and the artist is Luana Vecchio. This is a graphic novel. It is a multiverse science fiction story, and it deals with alcohol addiction and also abandonment and post-traumatic stress from child abuse. And it basically has a main character who is going through all of that, making all of the bad choices, and that is also sometimes very hard to read because the main character can be very unlikable, and it is an unflinching portrayal of how deeply troubling addiction can be, and how it affects people and how it affects people's relationships especially. So these two would be my answer to this question. Fall is back to school season. Share a non-fiction book that taught you something new. And once again, I have two answers because I cannot answer these questions with a single answer. Well, maybe one, but anyway. First, I have Disfigured, On Fairy Tales, Disability and Making Space by Amanda Leduc. This book, I think, is a must-read. It makes you think differently about stories and storytelling and how we as readers imagine disability, and how sometimes authors use disfigurement and disability as storytelling devices that ostracize, objectify, and also infantilize actual disabled and disfigured people. So if you are into storytelling, and also if you are into any kind of social justice activism, you should definitely read this book, because it is a very eye-opening look at how different storytelling tropes and different story conventions affect certain marginalized communities. The other book that I want to mention is Medical Bondage, Race, Gender, and the Origins of American Gynecology. And this is basically a non-fiction book about medical history, medical non-fiction, and it is gross, it is horrible, but I think it is necessary to read so that you know the full context of how different medical practices and medical procedures have been invented, and at what cost. I think that this book will make you angry, it will make you nauseous, but it is a necessary read. In order to keep warm, it's good to spend some time with the people we love. Name a fictional family, household, or friend group that you'd like to be a part of. This is a very easy answer. Basically, the Books of the Raksura by Martha Wells, that whole world, I would very much like to be an aggressive lizard baby shapeshifter and hang out with all the other aggressive, violent lizard baby, polyamorous, pan-romantic shapeshifters. This is such a cool world. It is also very brutal at times, but I just love this whole community of shifters. All of them have these polyamorous relationships with one another, and there is everyone seems to be at least partly pansexual. It's great. I really loved this series so much, and would recommend. I know that Murderbot by Martha Wells is very popular, almost universally praised book series, but I personally think that the Books of the Raksura are very underlooked, and if you like Martha Wells' storytelling, you should definitely go and check them out, because they deserve some love as well. And they have an amazing family group and dynamic. The colorful leaves are piling up on the ground. Show us a pile of fall-colored spines. Here you go. Some gold, some orange, some browns, reds, and also a mushroom. So here you go. These are my spines. Fall is the perfect time for some storytelling by the fireside. Share a book wherein somebody is telling a story. Once again, two things. First is The Magic Fish by Trung Le Nguyen, and I basically really love this story. This is all about queer acceptance, coming out, finding a common voice with your loved ones. This is basically about a son and a mother sharing a language via stories, and how different stories have different versions in different cultures, and it is them having a shared language by telling each other their stories, and also sharing their cultural experiences. The mother being an immigrant from Vietnam, and the son being a second generation immigrant who is experiencing the American culture. So yeah, I would highly recommend this story. It has such beautiful art and such a beautiful message as well. And then the other one is a non-fiction book, a memoir. It is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, one of my favorite books of all time. And this is basically all about storytelling, and it uses various storytelling tropes and also storytelling devices in order to tell you about this abusive relationship that Carmen Maria Machado went through. So yeah, those would be my answers for this question. The nights are getting darker. Share a dark, creepy read. First, I would like to talk about Don't Go Without Me by Rosemary Valero O'Connell. Rosemary Valero O'Connell is the same artist who did the art for Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, and you can expect the same style of art here. These are short stories that each have a very kind of sort of creepy undertone. Like some of them have creepy overtones, but most of these have like a creepy undertone with them, and it is very deceptive because the art style is very like pastels and this pastel color palette and very round and like whimsical. But if you start to like dig deeper, you realize how seriously creepy and kind of effed up some of these stories really are. And then another book I like to mention is Kuolleiden valssi, or The Waltz of the Dead by Marko Hautala. This is a horror anthology that was published this year by the Finnish horror author Marko Hautala. And I really like this anthology a lot. I am really looking forward to picking up other things by Marko Hautala now. I really enjoyed a lot of his like humor and his like narrative voice in these stories. Some of these stories I think are also translated to English as well. At least one story in this collection was a nominee for, or a finalist for the Bram Stoker or Shirley Jackson Award, I think. But yeah, really enjoyed this anthology earlier this year. The days are getting colder. Name a short, heartwarming read that could warm up somebody's cold and rainy day. Obviously, I have to mention A Man and His Cat by Umi Sakurai. I have consistently been enjoying this series. Even with the art style changes in the later volumes, I have really enjoyed this series. And I would especially recommend the very first volume, which works completely well as a standalone. The other volumes not so much, but this first volume definitely. And it is such a cozy, wonderful manga about this elderly widowed man who adopts an adult cat from a pet shop, and about the relationship. And if you are a cat lover or a cat owner of any kind, you will definitely enjoy this story and some of the shenanigans that this man and his cat get into. And then another book I want to mention is A Psalm for the Wild-Built by Becky Chambers. This is another one that is a pretty quick read, but I wouldn't rush through it. This book is something that really, I think, gets better if you sort of contemplate on it and let it simmer. Maybe get cozy, bury yourself in a couple blankets, drink some tea, and enjoy the ride. It is very introspective, and it is all about basically commentating on burnout culture and hustle culture as well, and what is meaning, and do we even need to have a meaning and a purpose in order to live full lives. Fall returns every year. Name an old favorite that you'd like to return to soon. I have a few, and I hope that someday I will actually be able to return to these. First is Amberlow by Lana Elena Donnelly. This is mainly because I need to finish the series. So Amberlow is a secondary world fantasy commentating on the fall of the Weimar Republic and basically the rise of the Nazi regime through an imaginary like analog, and it is especially commentating on the sort of cabaret culture. But essentially, this book is a commentary on the rise of fascism, and I have read the first book. I liked the first book a lot, but I never got around to reading the second and third books, and now I pretty much need to reread the first one in order to get back into the series and read the follow-ups. So yeah, this is definitely a favorite that I would like to return to. Another one is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I would very much like to reread the whole trilogy, but especially the fifth season. Fifth season and The Stone Sky were my favorites of the trilogy. And I just really want to re-experience this world and see what I think about it now, since it's been like what, 4 years I think since I read the series. Definitely need to pick this series back up. And my final answer is The Psychology of Time Travel, which I also really liked. I have a review for that as well. And this one I thought had such interesting concepts around time travel, and it is very like women-led and like sapphic and queer, and I very much enjoyed it. So I would very much like to go back and read it now that I know all the twists and turns, to see how that changes my reading experience. And there you have it. Those are all of my answers to the Finally Fall book tag. Tell me in the comments, what are some of your answers to these questions? Do you agree with me or disagree with me with any of these choices that I had? Or do any of these books sound interesting? Have you read any of them? Tell me all of that in the comments. And leave me a leaf emoji, like a fall leaf emoji, down in the comments so that I know that you were here. And I will see you in another video very soon. Bye bye!